There is a quiet kind of tragedy in a man who spends his entire life auditioning for a role he was never meant to play. The pleaser, the fixer, the soft apology in the storm. He bends, he breaks, he gives everything he has, his time, his money, his peace, just to be seen as enough by a woman who doesn't even belong to him. If that line stings, good, means some part of you is still alive. Because Epictetus, the slave-turned-philosopher, warned us long ago. The greatest tragedy is not physical slavery, but spiritual. You'd never hand your body over to a stranger on the street, but your mind? You give that away every time you beg for her validation, every time her silence shatters your confidence, every time you spiral because her approval feels like oxygen. And the worst part, you call it love. You tell yourself it's noble, romantic, loyal, but all it is fear dressed in perfume. Epictetus didn't need to write about women. He wrote about men who forget who they are the moment a woman smiles. Men who crumble because she stopped replying. Men who think their soul's worth is tied to how soft they speak around her. And the truth is brutal. You were not born to orbit her moods. You were not put here to be the emotional janitor of her chaos. Your job is not to win her heart. Your job is to govern your own. When she withdraws, you chase. When she screams, you fold. And when she leaves, you lose yourself. But Epictetus warned, "Os freedom belongs to the man who understands what is, and I senti within his control." Her loyalty, not in your control. Her love, not in your control. Her opinion of you, definitely not in your control. What is? Your reaction? Your focus? Your code? The unshakable ground you stand on when the world tries to pull you back into old, bleeding patterns. That's where most men lose the war before it begins. They think the enemy is her attitude, her hot and cold nature, her inconsistency. But it's not. The enemy is within. It's the hunger in you that says, "Without her, I am nothing." That voice was not born in you, it was planted. By a culture that teaches you to sacrifice yourself for her attention. By mothers who say make her happy. By songs that confuse suffering with love. Epictetus doesn't tell you to hate her. He tells you to rule yourself. Because if you can't say no, if you can't walk away, if your peace depends on her staying, then you're not a man in love. You're a man in chains. And no man in chains can lead. So ask yourself, who owns your mind right now? Who holds your leash? Who decides whether you rise or fall tomorrow? The answer is anyone, but you've already lost. And if you don't fight to take that power back, no one else will hand it to you. You keep calling it love, but it looks like hostage negotiation. You bend your voice into something softer so she doesn't get upset. You walk on eggshells, not out of compassion, but out of fear. She snaps, and you say yes. When everything in your gut screams no, and you convince yourself this is strength, that this is what a real man does, he sacrifices. But Epictetus would have called it what it really is. Spiritual suicide. You're not preserving love. You're abandoning your fortress. The one thing the gods gave you complete dominion over, your mind, your inner citadel. You surrender at the altar of her moods. Not out of romance, but because you're terrified of being left alone with yourself. And that terror. That's the iron chain no one sees, wrapped around your soul, dragging you back every time you try to stand up straight. Do you even know how many men are out here mistaking self-betrayal for devotion? How many warriors have become court jesters, clowns who perform for the faintest trace of affection? She withholds love and you respond with gifts. She disrespects you and you respond with apologies. You think endurance is masculine, but what you're enduring is the slow erosion of your spirit. Epictetus never said, "Tolerate madness for love." He said, when someone provokes you, remember, it is your judgment that provokes you. That means her tantrum is not your concern, her silence, not your crisis. The storm only touches you if you invite it into your heart. But most modern men don't have hearts. They have weather vanes. They spin with her moods. They drift with her whims. And they lose their way because they were never taught to anchor themselves in something greater than desire. Let me tell you something you weren't supposed to hear. A woman can only test you if there's something in you left untested. She's not the villain. She's the mirror. Her chaos isn't always malice, it's instinct. She pushes, not just to provoke, but to see if there's a man behind the mask. When you fold, when you betray your own code to keep her close, she loses respect. Not because she's cruel, but because nature doesn't revere weakness. And yet you keep praying at the altar of her affection. You hand her the keys to your dignity, hoping she won't drive it off a cliff. But she's not your savior. And if you keep handing her power you were meant to wield, don't be surprised when she uses it. You think she destroyed you, but it wasn't her. It was your refusal to hold the line. You abandoned your post, and now you wonder why no one salutes you. You were taught to be open, vulnerable, emotionally available, but no one told you the difference between availability and exposure. Oh, here you are bleeding in her hands, hoping she'll heal you, when all she knows how to do is squeeze tighter, and then you call it love. But Epictetus would have called it madness. It's not because women are cruel, but because men have abandoned their posts. They think love means offering the kingdom to someone who doesn't know how to rule, and then wondering why it burns to the ground. You hand over your self-respect, your schedule, your center of gravity, all for the hope that she'll stay. What kind of king begs his court to like him? What kind of man kneels before the very storm he was born to walk through? This isn't love. This is erosion in slow motion. The tragedy isn't that she leaves. The tragedy is what you became, trying to make her stay. You say, but I love her. Epictetus would look you in the eye and say, do you love her more than your reason, more than your peace? And if the answer is yes, then you don't love her. You're addicted. You're not noble. You're compromised. You've mistaken self-erasure for romance. You've made yourself small so she'd have room to shine, but now she can't even see you. Maybe that's the truth that terrifies you, most not that she left, but that when she looked at you, she saw nothing of the man you were supposed to be, because you traded it all away. The fire in your gut, the discipline in your spine, the standard in your eyes. You told yourself that being patient was strength. But what if it was just fear in a new costume? You weren't waiting for her to change. You were waiting for permission to be yourself again. And here's the final cut Epictetus would make. A man who cannot say no, who cannot stand firm when love threatens to erode his principles, is no man at all. He is a shadow, a ghost, a slave dressed in confidence, but hollow underneath. True love, real love, never demands that you betray yourself to keep it alive. And if it does, it's not love, it's a transaction, a prison in disguise. Stop calling it destiny when it's dependency. Stop calling it growth when you're shrinking to fit inside someone else's expectations. You were not made to orbit a woman's approval. You were made to stand tall in your own light and let those who see that light walk beside you. Epictetus didn't teach you to fight women. He taught you to free yourself, not from them, but from the illusions that make you kneel before them. And until you learn that, until you reclaim your spine, no love in the world will save you. Because the war is not with hurt, it's with the parts of you still afraid to be alone. You think the danger is in her leaving, but the real danger is in you, staying in a place where your values rot slowly under the weight of your silence. Every time you say yes, when your gut screams no, you bury a piece of yourself. You lie, you smile, you nod, you play the peacekeeper. But peace without self-respect is just spiritual decay. You become her emotional sponge, soaking in every storm she throws, while your own sky turns black. You wake up one day and realize you recognize the man in the mirror, not because she changed you, but because you changed yourself to avoid her disapproval. You did the very thing Epictetus warned against. You made someone else's emotions the compass of your life. And when the storm finally comes, as it always does, it's not her words that ruin you, it's the fact that you had no anchor left. There's a sickness men carry in this generation. Quiet disease passed down through songs, through movies, through weak advice. Make her happy, keep her, win her back. But no one says, keep yourself. No one says, if she disrespects you, walk away and don't flinch. You see, Epictetus didn't tell men to be cold. He told them to be centered, to act, not react, to remain, not retreat, to walk, not crawl, and, most importantly, to understand that no one, not her, not the world, gets to write your story for you unless you hand them the pen. And you've handed out that pen like candy. You've begged, explained, defended yourself, rationalize the irrational all to keep her gaze. But a man who explains too much is a man who has already surrendered. He's no longer leading. He's auditioning, hoping that with the right words, he'll be chosen. But a man who must audition for love is already beneath the role. And here's the truth Epictetus lived by: only the man who is willing to walk alone can ever be truly respected. Why? Because he doesn't flinch when the room gets cold, doesn't bend when affection is weaponized. He doesn't tremble when she tests him because he knows the test isn't about her, it's about him, about whether he'll fold, about whether he'll chase, about whether he'll betray his values to keep something that was never built on truth. The real war isn't between man and woman at S, between the self and the urge to abandon it. And the moment you choose to stay true, even if it costs you her love, something sacred is born in you. Not arrogance, not indifference, but sovereignty. And once you taste it, you'll never beg again. Because a man who governs himself doesn't need permission to be whole, simply is. She might call you cold, distant, arrogant, but she doesn't understand this isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's the silence of a man who no longer debates his worth. It's the stare of someone who's walked through fire, not for her approval, but to retrieve the pieces of himself scattered across years of quiet self-betrayal. The man who returns from that journey doesn't flinch when love is withheld. He doesn't beg when affection dries up. He doesn't negotiate with chaos dressed in perfume. He's not here to be liked. He's here to live aligned. And if that makes him lonely, so be it. There are worse things than solitude, like waking up next to someone who only loves you when you shrink. Most men don't fall because they are weak. They fall because they forget their center. They forget that a woman is not a god to be worshipped, but a mirror reflecting back the discipline or lack of it within them. She tests not because she's cruel, but because she needs to know if the man beside her is real. Not just a warm body, but a spine, a presence, a storm held in check by sacred restraint. And most of them fail. They break under pressure, melt in the heat of her disapproval, apologize for their boundaries as if having a backbone is a sin. But Epictetus whispered the truth to those willing to listen. No man is free who is not master of himself. Meaning if she can make you lose your center, she owns you. Not because she took your power, but because you gave it away like a fool. So you want to know what a man should never do with a woman? It's simple. Never hand her the keys to your peace. Never trade your integrity for intimacy. Never let your worth rise and fall with her mood swings. Because when you do, you're not loving, you're vanishing. And the world is already full of vanished men. Smiling, pleasing, broken. But you're not here to be digested. You're here to build, to lead, to anchor. Even if that means walking away. Even if that means standing alone. Because when a man chooses clarity over chaos, mission over comfort, principle over desire, that's when he becomes untouchable. And no woman, no matter how beautiful, can shatter a man who refuses to betray himself.